Happy birthday to you. I can't put my favorite line on one of our birthday services was Kyle Agee. He's not here today because little Anders is home with ear infection and stuff. But remember what he said? Some of you who were with us about 3 years ago, I think he was the first one who said, I kind of feel like when we turned 1 year old, it was like parents who just made it through the first year of life with a baby, and their feeling was, we didn't kill it. And I feel like that's the exact same way we are with this church. We're 4 years old. We made it. We've made it to 4. We made it to 4, man. We can keep going. We can do this. Maybe that's a little overstating the obvious, but sometimes the obvious is missed. I told you this, I think, but I told you a long time ago. It was a preacher and his family. He had 2 kids, and one of their favorite activities was to ride bicycles together. And they lived in California, and they would find different places, a lot of great places to ride. Well, he was looking for a new place because they had been doing this weekend after weekend after weekend, and they kind of wanted to find a new spot. And so he was looking in Google and trying to find different, and he found a place that said all natural bike trails, and he thought, perfect, that's where I go. Found out where I was, got the kids all hyped up, and went there one early Saturday morning. And they weren't on the trail an hour when he found out what all natural meant. Because here came by 6 bike riders not wearing a thing. Completely naked. And they rode by, and there's the preacher and his wife and his 2 kids, and he was wondering, oh my goodness, my goodness. And so they stopped and pulled over, and he looked back there, and his 8-year-old boy said, Dad, they weren't wearing their helmets. Sometimes the obvious isn't that obvious. You guys think about this. In this church, we started in a living room. And then we moved to the basement of a campus ministry house over on Clinton Avenue called The Edge. And then we moved to a warehouse office building that New Heights Church graciously loaned to us. Charged us $100 a week. We stayed there until we found a place over in Farmington where we met many of you. And we felt like that was kind of a temporary bus stop until God moves us over here. And then we got some more people on the bus here, and who knows what He's going to do in 15, 16 months. He may want us to stay at this stop a little bit longer, or He may have something else in mind. But it has been a wild journey, and I think the best thing of all of this journey is you. It's the people. It's the interactions. It's the exchange that we have with one another. It's getting to know each other better and growing closer through birth and baptism and graduations and marriages and more birth and age and funerals and hospitals. All of those times, in joys and in sorrows, we just come and we get close together. So one of our favorite things to do every anniversary, every church birthday, is for us to hear from different people. And I think I've got a smattering of folks coming up here that we don't normally get to hear from in these public assemblies. You know them, a lot of them, but we don't get a chance to exchange much with them. So I'm going to ask them to come up one at a time, and we're going to start off with Richard and Michelle Dobson, and then we're going to go to Stuart and Lori Hawkins, and then we're going to go to Rob and Donna Wagner, and then we're going to close with Brother Barry Felton. So we're going to start with the Dobsons, and I just asked them this simple question. I said, you guys, I want you to come up here. I want you to answer the question, how has God used CPC for you? How has God used this church in your life? All right, Dobsons, come up here.
A little nervous. I'm not used to public speaking. You know, everybody's great here. Michelle and I moved here. Michelle moved up in July last year, a year ago July. And she came up ahead of me because she's a professional. It took a little while for licensing and stuff. But I moved up here a year ago, October. And one of our biggest fears about leaving our home in Florida was leaving our church. We had a good church down there, and we loved people there. And we prayed about it, and we prayed hard. And I found this church. I found actually a couple churches online. Most of them, weren't God wasn't leading me there. I saw this one, and we came here. This is the first church we went to when we got here.
Yeah, he saw Nathan giving a sermon online, and it reminded him of our pastor in Florida because he was young.
Yeah, so luckily we got a 2-for-1. We got Nathan and Jim Bob. So I felt God led us here, and we've been here ever since. This has become our home, our church home.
It definitely made it easier for me because he brought me up here in July, and we got to come to church twice together, and then with him not here, I was able to come to church and feel like he was still with me. It was fun, it became our church family right away.
And Jim Bob, your sermon in the last few weeks, the Christian Atheist, that described me a lot before I moved here. I believed in my own strength, my own ability to provide for my family. And then I started getting sick, and as it got more and more difficult for me to work, I realized that I didn't have the strength to do it all. I couldn't do it. I couldn't provide for my family without God's help, and the support of a good church family. So when I got up here, I turned my whole life over. Not just telling people I was a Christian, but actually believing 100% in God's mercy, God's trust, and God's strength. So
With his provision.
In His provision.
He has provided.
So this whole move up here, I appreciate everybody here. I appreciate my church family. I am closer to some people in here than I am to my own family. And God has definitely blessed me with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We had actually gone to, the church we went to before this was in this building. And we were living in Springdale, and we had, my grandparents had suggested to us, and we started going there. Anyway, we had gone there for about 2 years, and we had been involved in a lot of different capacities. We tried to help out the kids and, help lead the students and do a lot of things. And I think it was a good lesson for us in service, but at the same time, we kind of felt like we didn't really know where it was going. We kind of felt like we weren't seeing a lot of fruit from that. And through our time previously, we had kind of experienced a little bit of hurt, and the time came, the Spirit led us to kind of move on, and we began looking for churches, and we were kind of adrift. Nothing was right. The Spirit didn't confirm any church that we had tried to us, and just on a whim, we decided we saw.
We were driving by one day, actually.
Yeah, we saw that our church had moved out and City Point moved in, and Lori asked me if if I thought it would be weird for us to try it out. And
We kind of wanted to see what it looked like, see how it was a little different, and
and we
curiosity.
did, and we've been here ever since then. The interesting thing is, I said we've done a lot of different things here before. We had done things, even at this building, as far as painting and carpet and a lot of different improvements and stuff. And so when we got led away, we kind of felt like it just kind of felt like a I don't know the word, like it just was unfinished. When we got led back here, there was a lot of different interesting things that were kind of confirmed to us. There's a lot of different stories I can tell. A rock that I'd written on during an old sermon that got thrown out and ended up being brought back inside, and Lori found it one day helping with the kids, and just different things that confirmed this for us. But I think one of the greatest reasons that I saved was the very first person I met coming here was Jim Bob. He met us at the door, and I knew immediately this is a guy that I could easily just come to love. And we've been here ever since then. We've never left. And I had always wanted a church that we could be involved in more than just Sunday and Wednesday and the occasional community group or something. And this church gets together all the time, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And we've grown closer to so many of you in here than we have at any church we've been to before, and that was probably never more evident than it was here recently when we experienced the loss, and we were both just terrified to come to church. Of all places, even go out in public, but we knew if we came here to our church family, that we wouldn't be able to hold it together. We would just lose it.
I couldn't do what I'm gonna say, because that's where I'm going.
Well, I guess what it meant to me is just, Jim Bob opened it up to a lot of different people that were hurting, and I guess it was just interesting to me that he created a moment that would serve so many people and me specifically at the same time. And I've just never experienced that kind of love before in a church family.
Well, and the Sunday after our miscarriage, Stuart had talked to Richard and Michelle, and I just was so afraid to come, and I was afraid if somebody hugged me, I would just start bawling. And I was like, I don't want to cry in church, it'd be so embarrassing, and I don't want everyone to see me like that. And Richard told Stuart that he was going to hug me no matter what. And when we got here, Jim Bob said that there was a lot of the sermon that was directed towards us, and I was like, oh great, I'm going to be crying the whole time. And I was terrified to come, and I cried the whole day, but at the end of it, the whole week I've been feeling like I was ridiculous for being so upset over something that, I don't know, that we never got to experience the full process of it. And I thought I was just being silly. And to be here and to have people bawling with us and crying on our shoulders and leaving our shoulders wet was just, it made me realize that it was okay to be upset, and that, I don't know, I felt like I had a family here, and people that hurt as much as we hurt, and it really meant a lot.
I think in my life and even in my own family, I don't think I've ever been loved as intensely as I have been here at City Point. I think I can truly say that. So we love our family here.
Thanks, guys.
It was the first move we actually prayed about. We were very connected in our church. We had left a Lutheran church that we thought was a great home for us, and broke our entire family. I won't go into a long story, but broke our entire family. And our youth minister from that church, after much prayer and consideration and talking, actually started his own church in the basement of a home. And so we came from a contemporary, non-traditional basement church that we thought, okay, as we've grown, how are we going to move to a new area and find something even remotely similar to what we had come from?
Which incidentally was all about discipleship. It was the difference of the conventional church that we had been a part of for so many years. I was brought up Catholic, Donna was brought up Lutheran, and it was never really about relationship. It was never really about a relationship with Jesus. It was just very kind of planned, and this is what you do, and this is how you do it. So breaking away from, and Stuart mentioned hurt, we have also been hurt at many churches that we've been a part of. So going along to what our church family in Atlanta is, Alien Ministries, and that's based on the 1 Peter verse about how we're supposed to look different in this world.
So much prayer. We took a trip here. We felt like home. We were leaving our oldest two in college back in Atlanta. So we had to look at it as instead of the children going away to college, we're going away and leaving them.
Yeah, we left them.
In a comfort zone, I guess. So it was rough. It was rough. And so we came here and we started looking at churches, and we were looking for the non-traditional church. And we visited one, and that was definitely not the home. And I've always
The altar call kind of freaked her out. I thought it freaked Emily out. It actually freaked Donna out a little bit.
So we're like, okay, that's not the one. And we live very close to here, so we kept passing by. And so finally I said, you know what? I think we should try that. Look, Sunday we're going to that church. And usually he's the more vocal one about the churches. And so he's like, fine. I was insistent. And so we came in.
Actually, when we drove by, I'm like, it's a little sketch. I'm not sure about that. Honestly.
But I, on the other hand, was confident. This was non-traditional.
It's like like just hidden behind bushes. And, I don't know. I don't know what kind of church they got going on over there.
But we have learned in a year plus that we are not surprised by anything that happens in the state of Arkansas. Yesterday came to mind, I'm sorry. So we came in and immediately we were greeted by Jim. And Emily met Nathan. And so Emily had to make sure we put it in here. She is the reason we came back the second, third, and fourth time.
And never left.
And never left. She was insistent on coming back the second time and wanting to try the youth group. But by the third visit in this door, we probably had more relationships with many of you than we had in most of the churches we grew up in. We never skipped a beat. The people are amazing, and we just feel it working in our lives. I personally usually don't open up very quickly, so me standing even up here today was a big step. But you are all amazing. The Baker family is amazing. Okay, we did not know how many of you there were when we came in. But then as we realized you all start to look alike, we're like, okay. And every one of them is amazing in different facets. And the music was another big seller for us, the worship team. Amazing. It's what we came from. We feel it every week in the music here. And got us hooked.
Our pastor in Atlanta, Tim, who's a very close friend of ours, and back at our Lutheran church, again, Donna mentioned he was the youth pastor. So our two older kids, Jake and Kaylee, some of you have met because she spent part of the summer with us. They were both in the youth group at our former Lutheran church, and that's how we got to know Tim. And then there were a lot of things that happened in that church, and there were about probably 15 or 16 families that broke away and started Alien Ministries, which is continuing to thrive today. And again, we're thankful for our church family in Atlanta, but one of the things that I struggled with in taking this relocation, which is now the second one, we moved from Orlando to Kennesaw, Georgia, right outside Atlanta, and now here to Fayetteville, Arkansas. As we were considering this move, and as Donna said, it was, I think Richard said, really counted on my own strength and my own will to make all these things happen. This was really the first move that we prayed about, really was trying to listen to God. And the big challenge for us, and I'm not sure if it was either more for me or Donna, but it was leaving our two older kids in Atlanta. We gave them the opportunity to come with us. They decided to stay where they were. God worked in a couple of different ways, and I could sit here and talk, and Jim Bob, you wouldn't have time for a sermon today, so I'll spare you that. But we really felt God working in this decision. And Tim and I met a lot as I was struggling over this decision. He said, Rob, at the end of the day, you have to be okay that God is in control. God is going to watch over those kids. We're here. We're going to take care of them. If they need something, we'll be here. I promise you that. You already know that. But you and Donna have to trust that God is going to watch over these two in Atlanta, while you and Emily and Donna go where you feel that God is leading you. And that was a really, really big challenge for me, for somebody that, again, has been brought up on, you do it on your own, you pull your bootstraps up, and you continue going and not really having that faith. So as we've moved through conventional churches and then into Alien Ministries, which was all about relationship, all about discipleship, coming here is I feel like the next step for us in where God is leading us. I'm very thankful for this church and for our church family here. I've got a couple of folks at work that have come here as well. So again, it's a blessing. Jim Bob, I told him the other day on the phone, when I grow up, I want to be just like him, because I've never met somebody that loves people so much. and he's just been a blessing to our family. Emily is connected into the youth group. That was one of the things that Alien didn't have, and that was one of the things Emily yearned for, was a youth group, something she saw her brother and sister thrive in the youth groups that they had been a part of. And Alien has not grown to the point where they're just starting now to kind of do some youth events, but not to the degree that our two older ones did. And that's something Emily was yearning for, you know, a relationship and a youth group of people that she could count on. And Nathan has been wonderful. Again, another huge blessing for our family. Molly has really befriended Emily and helped her through a very difficult move, moving to a place where we know nobody, you know, other than the people that I work with, and I didn't know them that well when we moved here. So really on faith. I mean, really this whole move has been on faith, and now we can look back on a year plus. We really started coming to City Point in September. The youth event, Back to School Bash that we had last year was our first
Group event.
Group
Now
event.
we try not to miss a single group event.
Right. So,
We love 'em.
you know, again, look back on a year and wonder how you got here, and realize that it's because of the faith that we had to move here, not knowing anybody, leaving a church home that we love very much. Just one more thing to add. One thing I really focused on when after Jim Bob and I talked this week was every church, other than Alien Ministries, every church we belong to, there's always a group of people that had an agenda, right? It was always, and some of you may have experienced this as well, and that's where the fraction in the church comes from. I've not seen that here. There's no gossip that goes on here. There's no group of people that are working over here thinking they're doing the right thing while the rest of the church is doing something else. That really, really speaks to me, because again, some of the hurt that we've seen in our previous churches has been because of that. So that is a testament to all of you and what wonderful, loving people all of you are, how blessed we are to be a part of this church. Good? Okay. Thank you.
It's amazing to me how our stories are so similar yet so different. None of us knew what the other people were going to say, but okay, I think the same strain of thought runs through them all. There's many things I love about City Point. The worship, the messages, but before I really tell you the main thing that I like, I need to give you a little bit of background. In 2010, the last day of 2010, I moved down to Arkansas from Minnesota. And I hated to leave the church that I was at. I'd been there for about 4 years, and I really loved it. And so I get down here and I start looking for churches, and didn't really find anything that felt like home. And so the closest one was a church called the Restoration Church, down off MLK, and started going there with a friend of mine for several months, and realized that, yeah, we liked it on Sundays, but that was it. There was no small groups, there was nothing else to the church. And so we realized that we were missing relationships. So about that time, her sister told her about North Point, a church in Atlanta, that she had been watching online every week for a while. And so watched that and I was hooked. The worship was excellent, the sermons were excellent, and so on. And unfortunately, I became so focused on that I stopped going to church, a local church. And so for several months, maybe even the better part of a year, I had that as my church. But again, I realized that there was no relationships being formed. So I started, again, looking for a church that was about that time. The City Point Church showed up in Farmington there. So I started going there. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go there too long because I moved to Arizona to be with a couple of my older kids and grandkids. And found a church out there that I absolutely loved. And I really thank God for that. It was a Lutheran church, and I'd never gone to a Lutheran church before, but God led me there. And I got involved and really grew, and it was a great time. Unfortunately, I didn't like Arizona. I didn't love Arizona at all. And so I moved out of there. A little more than a year later, my son was asking me to move back to Minnesota to help him fix up a house that he had bought. So I committed to doing that for 6 months and went there. Unfortunately, that didn't work out real well because he had a tendency to drink too much and use that as a house where he could hide and drink. And all the anger and everything started coming out of him. He was actually one of my stepsons because me and his mom didn't treat him the way that he felt like he should be treated. And so he was blaming all his alcohol tendencies and everything on us. Well, it just got worse and worse, and okay, I realized that I was actually causing more anger to come out of him, and so it wasn't worth staying there. About the same time, my friend developed some health challenges down here, and so I moved back down to help her, and started looking for church again because she had told me that City Point had moved from Farmington, and so I was living in West Fork, and that was a bit of a drive, and so went to some of the same churches, went to some different churches, and didn't really find anything. So I said, well, I'll go back to City Point. Came here one week and I just fell in love with the worship again, and again with the people, and with Jim, and so on. And it really just kind of felt like home. Well, it wasn't very long after that that I got in my accident out here in the parking lot, and everybody just jumped in to get involved and was so helpful and prayer for me, and offering that week to give me rides any place that I needed, or to bring me food, or to do anything like that. And it was just really, I felt like, why would they do this for somebody that's just brand new? But that's what I love about City Point, is the people. The people are what makes the church. You are the church. And whether you're on the worship team, whether you're greeting there at the door, and even taking umbrellas out to cars when it rains, or whether you're serving back here by the coffee or whatever else, that's what makes the church. And it's so great to see all of that. And as I realized, and I was thinking about what makes a church, you realize that a pastor can be great. There's only one Andy Stanley, okay? There's only one John Piper, whose church I was attending up there in Minnesota. But they don't make the church. It's the whole congregation that makes the church. And the other thing I realized that getting involved really makes you become a part of the church, really makes you appreciate the church, and makes you want to do more for the church. And for those of you that are not involved, okay, thank the people that are involved, the people that are taking care of your kids, the people that put on that wonderful production in the summer. That was amazing. I don't know how in the world they did that in a week. But it's just amazing to me what you all do and how much you do for this church and this community. And that's what people see when they come and visit. That's what you've heard from these other couples here also, is you were welcoming them and you welcomed me. And I appreciate that, and I really love City Point Church.
Yeah. I think the overall theme was there. I mean, there has to be a vertical, but there also has to be a horizontal. If it was just vertical, then y'all go to Devil's Den or someplace and find some gorgeous spot and just lose yourself in worship with the Lord. That's great. But church is a combination of vertical and horizontal. And that's why we get together. That's why we get to love each other and be with each other when we're hurting. And man, each one of you, way to go. There's nothing that we could do to spend our time together that's more beneficial than to have that kind of testimony of God and His work at this place. Okay, I want to end with 3 scriptures. Here's the first one. Jeremiah 29:11. You've seen it, you've heard it. Look at it again. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. In those days when you pray, I will listen. If you will look for me wholeheartedly, you will find me. I will be found by you. I love that. Next one, 1 Chronicles 4:10. The prayer of Jabez. Remember this? He prays, "Oh, that you would bless me and expand my territory. Please be with me in all that I do and keep me from all trouble and pain." And God granted his request. And then finally, 1 Corinthians 2:9. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what the Lord has prepared for those who love him. Oh, guys, we're just starting. We're just starting. And God has blessed us with 4 wonderful years. So let's just hang on. Let's keep riding this wonderful wave that he's got for us. Wherever he leads, we've just already said, okay, that's where we're going. The church belongs to him, does it not? Church doesn't belong to me. Church doesn't belong to a group of leaders. It belongs to him. He's the head. He's the one that decides everything. So we're just going to keep looking to him. All right, that's why I want us to sing this song. We sing. I asked Caleb to lead this a lot at the end of the sermon because I really feel like it's a reaffirmation of what's been happening. We do look back and remember that he's faithful. The 4 things it says: we look up because there's none above you. I'll look down. I'll bow down to tell you that I need you. I'll look back to see that you're faithful. I'll look ahead believing you are able. That's our prayer. And that's our prayer on this special anniversary day. 4 years old. Man, way to go. Way to go. Let's pray.